In this video, I'll explain the entire lore of Dead Rails. I'll walk you through all the evidence step by step, starting with clues in the lobby, all the way to secret notes, telegraphs, and strange carvings hidden across the Dead Rails universe. Let's begin in the lobby. Here, we see a small town where several people are still alive. This is clear from the presence of attendants at the tailor and the bank, both of whom appear unaffected by the virus, as well as the number of people freely walking around the area. However, there's a newspaper stand that provides our first major clue. It contains a publication from the US government dated June 21st, 1899. The headline comes from a city in Texas called San Antonio. It reports that a new form of influenza is spreading across the nation. Health officials have confirmed over 1,000 new cases in Texas alone. The article warns that anyone experiencing a fever should limit contact with others, and that the long-term effects of this illness are still unknown. Just one day later, on June 22nd, 1899, a new government notice is issued. This time it reports widespread looting across towns in San Antonio. The cause of the unrest is linked to the earlier news about the virus, now described as causing violent and unexplained mental effects. The warning advises citizens to avoid anyone showing symptoms of this new illness. 3 days later, on June 25th, 1899, the situation escalates. Another message from the government announces that martial law has been declared in San Antonio. The virus is now officially being referred to as a zombie plague. In response to the rapid spread and its violent effects, President McKinley orders martial law in an attempt to regain control. The government also begins calling for volunteers, urging anyone willing to help to visit their local recruiting station. 9 days pass. On July 5th, 1899, we arrive at a US fort guarded by turrets. Here, a new government update brings some hope. Mexican scientists have reportedly developed a treatment for the zombie plague. Survivors are now being encouraged to travel to the capital where the cure will be distributed. The report describes this breakthrough as a source of hope for the many communities still struggling through the crisis. From this, it's implied that San Antonio may now be a safe zone. Just outside the first fort, there's a signpost pointing toward Mexico. It states that the distance to Mexico is 80,000 meters. This confirms the survivors' goal to reach Mexico and find the cure. Along their journey, they'll come across zombies, people who have been infected and transformed by the virus. They'll also encounter various animals that seem unaffected by it, such as wolves and horses. As you progress, you'll encounter several buildings, including a sheriff's office and a general store. Inside some of these structures, you might find a wanted poster. This poster was issued by the government in search of Captain Prescott. He is wanted for deserting his post and defecting to an enemy nation. There is a bounty of $150 on his head. We'll talk more about Captain Prescott later in the video. Further ahead along the way, we reach a landmark called Sterling. This town was abandoned a long time ago, which is evident by the cobwebs on the buildings, showing no one has been here in quite some time. Inside one of the buildings, we find a note left by a survivor. It's addressed to a loved one, informing them that if they find their way back to this house, likely their home, the survivor took everything and left for San Antonio. From the news, we know that San Antonio is considered safe. The note ends with the hope of meeting this person there, and it also mentions that they couldn't wait any longer, implying they had been waiting for this person to return before leaving. Another note can be found at the church in Sterling, revealing that the people of the town had gathered there. During the gathering, they were urged to leave Sterling. The note mentions how many men had been lost to the mines, making the town unsustainable. This suggests that Sterling's economy likely collapsed due to these losses, and the town could no longer function. There could be another reason for the town's evacuation. It's possible that the people of Sterling knew about the valuable strange mask hidden in the mines. They kept sending miners to retrieve it, but the cost was too high. If anyone attempted to take the mask, a trap was triggered, releasing 3 werewolves, which would likely have killed them. This might explain the skeletons found in the mines, whose deaths were not caused by the zombie plague. After the church meeting, the sheriff declared all missing miners as deceased. This means that their bodies were never recovered, and they were simply labeled as missing. Behind the church, we find a sealed-off mine, likely blocked by the townspeople in response to the many missing miners. Inside the mine, we also find another sealed-off area where the strange mask is located. The wooden planks sealing off this area indicate that the townspeople were aware of the mask's existence. They continued sending miners to retrieve it, but none ever returned. Eventually, they lost too many miners, making it unsustainable to keep trying. At this point, they decided to seal it off for good. One more interesting thing in the mine is the carvings found on the jade tablets and walls. The carvings include an eye, a skull, and snakes. The eye could symbolize awareness, the skull might represent death, and the snakes could signify consequence. Together, these symbols likely serve as a warning. Meddling with this ancient power leads to cursed consequences. The next landmark with more clues is the Tesla lab building. Much like Sterling, this building also has cobwebs, indicating it has been abandoned for quite some time. This suggests that the events here unfolded around the same time as those in Sterling. Inside the Tesla building, we find several telegraph messages. The earliest one, sent from Washington, D.C. on August 6, 1895, informs Tesla Labs that they are sending funds to develop a bioweapon for military purposes. The goal of this bioweapon was to mimic the effects of yellow fever. Tesla Labs was given about a year to create a prototype. A few months later, on January 2, 1896, Washington sends another telegraph thanking Nikola Tesla for the swift development of Agent 15, also known as the bioweapon. Despite the original timeline expecting about a year for a prototype, Nikola Tesla managed to deliver it much faster than expected. As a result, the government orders 100 barrels of the prototype. Another significant find inside the lab is a note hidden under a book. This note is from Nikola Tesla himself, informing whoever finds it that he and his workers were exposed to the bioweapon, Agent 15, the same one the government had just ordered in bulk. Nikola goes on to say that he will undergo a total encephalectomy to stop the effects from spreading to his brain. He also urges the person who finds the note to take him to the top scientists for help in rebuilding him. Since we, the survivors who find this note, don't know where to find top scientists, we attempt to rebuild him ourselves. Unfortunately, our efforts lead to the creation of a monster that escapes the Tesla lab. After the zombie fight inside the lab, we see footprints leading away from the building, suggesting that Nikola himself left the lab. The next landmark we need to discuss is Fort Constitution. Here we find 3 telegraphs from Washington, D.C. The first one, sent on February 6, 1898, 2 years after the first telegraph to Nikola Tesla, was sent directly to Captain Prescott. It informs him of an incoming shipment of metal barrels labeled Agent 15. He is instructed to hold them for 2 days, after which a carrier will pick them up and load them onto the USS Maine. In real life, the USS Maine, a United States Navy battleship, exploded and sank in Havana Harbor on February 15, 1898. This could suggest one of two things. Either the explosion was accidental and the bioweapon infected the water, spreading it to other parts of the nation, or the explosion was part of a cover-up. One day after the USS Maine sank, on February 16, 1898, Washington sends another telegraph to Captain Prescott, instructing him to burn all prior telegraphs mentioning Agent 15 or USS Maine, and to report when the task is complete. The very next day, February 17, 1898, Washington sends yet another telegraph threatening Captain Prescott with formal charges of desertion, cowardice, and defection to an enemy nation if he fails to report to the chain of command. The government eventually spreads posters across the nation accusing Captain Prescott and his men of desertion. It's likely that the captain and his crew tampered with the bioweapon Agent 15 out of curiosity and ended up getting infected. Finally, we reach the fort, which seems to have been overtaken by bandits. Instead of the usual USA flag, we see the bandit flag flying, signaling that the fort is no longer under government control. This is where we can lower the bridge and escape to Mexico, where the government claimed a cure had been found. But once we lower the bridge, Nikola Tesla appears again and attempts to kill us. Could it be that he followed us here from the Tesla lab? So that's all I have for you now. Let me know what you think of these theories and feel free to drop your own in the comments section. I'll read them all and use them in my future lore videos as we get more updates. Now, before you go, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps me out more than you think. See you in the next video.